Hello and welcome to Trekkie and Beyond, a Star Trek podcast. I'm Monika.
And I'm Andrea. And this is episode 5 of season 1 of Strange New Worlds. And we're getting Freaky Friday in this place, people. We have some body change, some soul switching, some seeing through our partner's eyes, and a whole lot of learning to accept yourself and your partner. If it wasn't about Spock, I'd probably be like, ugh, romance. So let's go ahead and get all into it. Monika, what is your initial reaction about this episode?
I feel like we have your initial reaction right there. So it wasn't really explore a strange new world as much as, I really like away missions to other planets. However, I really like this episode. And what's better than one Spock? But two Spocks. So I thought this was adorable. Love the love story and the connections and balancing to a couple that has both professional goals and work-life balance in it. So yeah, cool.
I liked this episode purely for the fact it was about Spock. I liked it because we got to see more of this version of him. And I like the little body switching. I'm liking his fiance a little bit more. I'm sort of rooting for them, even though I'm hoping, you never know if they might change anything. I hope they do. I'm sort of rooting for this relationship a little bit more now. Like, I'm seeing her, she's a strong, independent woman, and I love that. I love a strong, independent woman who's like, look, if you ain't gonna make time for me, like, I need to be a priority as well. You need to make time for me. I'm not just gonna sit here and wait on you for beck and call. And I'm like, oh, okay, I see you. You got your own dreams, your own responsibilities. Call him out, honey. Call him out. I couldn't believe I was on her side in this episode. I was definitely on the fiance side, T'Pring side this entire episode versus Spock's. And I was just like, interesting. I was very shocked that I was on her side.
Yeah, because remembering back to the first episode of the series, she proposed to him, and they were in the midst of something before it was interrupted by work. So she quickly reminded him of that. So it's nice that they were able to plan a rendezvous together to reconnect.
Even though it's still interrupted by work. But we will get into that as we go deeper into this episode. So this episode starts with Spock feeling unsure about himself. He is both human and Vulcan, and he was raised on Vulcan to only identify with his Vulcan half. So he feels as if he's not enough. And we see that in the beginning where his human side has to fight his Vulcan side for the right to marry T'Pring. Spock holds himself in such this high regard when he's around everyone else, and he's so sure of himself. It sort of goes to show that people can put on good fronts and you don't really know what's going on the inside, because he doesn't really know how to identify when it comes to T'Pring, and he feels like he's not good enough for her. And we see that in the beginning episode because he wants her. In the dream that he's having, he wants her, and he's fighting for her, and he just doesn't feel like he's enough because of his human half. And I thought that was a very beautiful but also heartbreaking. And remember, people, I'm the one who's dead inside when it comes to like relationships. And I thought it was like a beautiful, and I just wanted to give him a hug to be like, no, you're enough, Spock. You're enough for her. You're more than enough for her. Like, you're enough for yourself. Just love yourself. And it was just a beautiful scene. Heartbreaking, but a beautiful scene to really show us what he was feeling. What did you think?
My husband reminded me that, because I haven't watched all of the original series, and that the scene of Spock's nightmare was actually kind of foreshadowing an episode to come in the original series. So the future, in which T'Pring really gives Spock an ultimatum at their wedding, and he has to fight for his love for her, and he ends up fighting against work, against Captain Kirk. And so that battle was actually the same battle that's going to occur, in which Spock has to fight with Kirk for T'Pring's love. So it's interesting that they use the whole choreography is the same of the fight, the sound, the soundtrack in the background, the chimes, all of it takes place later. So it's quite cool.
Side note, isn't this supposed to be like 10 years before the original series?
Right.
So are they going to be engaged for 10 years?
Yes, and that's part of her issues with Spock.
Oh, hell no, honey. We don't wait around for a guy for 10 years. We don't do that in this world.
And they were bequeathed as kids at like age 7 and 8. So
no way. They have to deviate from that at some point, because there's no way they're gonna sit there and make this girl. There's no. There's no way they're gonna sit there and drag out this relationship with her on this show for 10 years. There's no way they're going to do that. There's no way it makes sense, because they're throwing in Nurse Chapel, they're throwing in Uhura, they're throwing in all these other people. Now, I don't, if this was like a year before the original series was supposed to start, right, I can like agree to that. But are they really going to sit there and have this engagement for 10 years?
Yeah. So
unless they're going to break up and get back and break up and get back and break up and get back, because I can't see T'Pring waiting 10 years to get married. This version that they're showing us,
right?
Nah.
So it's actually a little bit less than that. It's 8 years. So if you look at the start date, but it's still a long time.
It's still too much
for T'Pring to wait.
And I know Vulcans live longer. I know like they have a longer lifespan or whatever, but still, no.
Right. No, it's not logical.
No. Yes. It's illogical. Unless it was like unless she's like, all right, because I do know a couple who was engaged for 10 years, but purely for the fact that they got engaged when they were like 18, and they both wanted to have their degrees before they got married, and they wanted to have established jobs and stuff, because when they wanted to pay, they wanted the wedding of their dream, they wanted to be able to afford it, and they didn't want their parents to pay for it. But like they were both in agreement at the very beginning that they were not getting married until after they got the degree. And the program that she was in before he proposed was a 10-year program. And then but that was something they both agreed upon. So unless it's like we're going to see something of her saying, look, you got 8 more years in Starfleet and then you need to leave and then we're going to get married, then I can understand waiting that time, because okay, I'm letting him finish his goal, finish something that he needs for himself. But if they're not on that same page, she ain't waiting 8 years. If they don't have that conversation of understanding, she's not the T'Pring that they are showing us is not waiting 8 years. If they had showed us a different version where she was more malleable and like, I love you, Spock, I'll do whatever, then I can understand her waiting like 8 years. The version they're showing us, this doesn't seem like a girl who's going to wait 8 years if she wants to be married, now.
Yeah, I think what they're going to do is they're going to have this on and off relationship.
Yeah, they have
unfortunately for
That's
8 years, and and I don't know. There's going to be biological clock ticking. It's going to be interesting to see how this all unfolds. But yeah, she's in 8 years. She's tired of waiting for him, and he has to fight over work to return it.
So yeah, this is and it also, not to be too much of a relationship talk, but it also showcases having your understanding you can love someone and your goals not aligned, so you can't be together. And so I need T'Pring to have a man who's all about her. T'Pring to show us in this episode, she is about that life. And Spock, if you ain't gonna rise to the occasion, I know men who will. So do not hold that bad girl down just so you can be like, I want you when I want you. No, don't. I am team T'Pring, Spock. Okay.
And Spock has a backup with Chapel.
So we're gonna get into that part, because I don't know if I don't like them together.
Yeah.
And I want them to be like platonic best friends. And I feel like she's gonna like him. I feel like they're leading to that in this episode, and I don't want that for them. I want them to be like platonic best friends. Like she helps him see the human side of like, dude, don't do that. I want them to be PLPs, platonic life partners. No romance, just be best friends. That's what I want for them. It's not gonna happen, but that's what I want for them. So this episode is all about Starfleet having shore leave. After the whole fight with the Gorn, these people need a break, they need repairs, and people are excited to get off the ship. And as we see Ortega and Nurse Chapel actually leaving the ship, I always forget the doctor's name.
Mabanga.
He lets a little nickname slip. And I'm saying, you're too dumb to let that slip, dude. Like, you did that on purpose. And he called number one, basically the nickname is a place where fun goes to die, or where fun goes to die. And how you didn't let that slip on purpose. You let that go because you're trying to like give her some hint, hint, nudge, nudge, lighten up a bit. And that leads to a whole episode of La'an and number one having their own version of fun. And I really enjoyed their sequence of them trying to have fun. What did you think of their whole scenes of them interviewing the ensigns and trying to energize to get the gum flavor back and,
right.
and like spacewalking? Like, what did you think of the scenes with them?
Yeah, so it reminded me of a interrogation because they were trying to play good cop, bad cop to get the information to truly find out what was going on behind us. They felt out of touch with the rest of their crew. And obviously they were, because they didn't know about Enterprise bingo, and Uhura knew about that, and everyone else knew about that. I have a feeling Pike knew about that as well, because he mentioned...
He probably invented it.
Because when Uhura arrived at the dinner party, he mentioned that, they're still doing that hazing thing. So I have a feeling that he knows about it. But
he started it. Pike probably started it.
This is an opportunity, I think, for them to really also reconnect, because they've had some drama in the last few episodes between the two of them, and also explore the ship in other ways while the rest of the crew isn't there, so they can have some fun. Because I don't think the two of them would let their guard down and do that phaser stun gun duel in the corridor if there was crew there. They would never do that.
Definitely not. Definitely not.
Right? They made a force field around themselves to go, so they didn't have to put themselves in a spacesuit.
I thought it was a holodeck.
No, they were actually out there in space, and they had a force field around them, and that's why they were able to see the ship pass.
I thought it was like showcasing. I thought they went on the holodeck and then like showcased what was outside. Those idiots.
Right, and that's why I was like, "Are you sure this is safe?" And that's why number one pushed the edge where the force was to test it. They should have done that before, but
I thought that was. Oh my god.
To make a permanent etch of their names on that pad.
I thought they were doing it for I thought they were fake doing it so that way they could like break the rules, but not really, because I noticed as they were right before they fired, number one stopped, but La'an didn't hear her before she fired, and they felt sort of uncomfortable breaking the rules. So I thought like this was their way of not breaking the rule. Are you sure? Are you 100%? Because they can't be that stupid to go out into space with just.
Then otherwise, why would they have seen the ship? They wouldn't have seen the ship pass.
I was saying it was reflecting what was outside.
Yeah, I think they were really out there. I
can't believe that.
I think legit, they took it to a whole other level. And they really, if you're gonna do Enterprise bingo, you gotta do it all the way.
No. Okay, I've lost a little bit of respect for them. How is she going to be the chief security officer and the number two on the ship, number one, the second highest person on the ship, risking your lives?
She said she was 99% sure that this was going to work.
That's not enough. We can't breathe out there.
But it was fun to watch them blow off steam, to explore more of the ship. We got to see more of that and actually see what happens when, these are dangerous weapons that they have, these phasers, and they're just playing around. And number one has these like superpowers. She's like a mutant, but she still felt that pain. So yeah. But it was fun watching them break the rules.
It was fun watching them break the rules until they did something stupid.
All of it was stupid.
Because I swear to God, I swear everyone who's listening to this, I did not realize. I just assumed. Maybe I just missed that her saying, "Are you sure this is going to hold?" I just assumed it was them like having video showing what was outside, inside, and when she touched the side, she was touching the holodeck.
That's why I think, everyone, that this episode should have been called Hijinks, because the whole thing, like, everyone was just pushing boundaries and just going out on the edge of reality.
I can't. People, I can't.
It wasn't just Spock amok. There was number one amok. La'an was amok.
And we even see that Nurse Chapel is amok because she doesn't do healthy relationships. That's a lie. I won't say that. She doesn't do relationships.
Yeah.
Committed relationships. She has a fear of them. And I respect her knowing that about herself and not leading on that guy and saying, like, the deuces, I'm out. Like, she was on a date, seemed like a really nice guy. He seemed really into her. He wanted her to transfer to be where he was. And that's serious. He really wanted to see her. He's like, I'm showing you off to all my friends. And she sees Spock and literally is like, I gotta go. But even before she saw him, you saw that her heart, like when the guy started talking about being serious, it's like you saw her freak out. We saw her like head almost feel like it was full of water. She glazed over. She was like, nope, I don't want to have this conversation. Yep, but the thing was, she was dressed to the nines to not want to have a relationship. She was dressed beautifully. I love the outfit she was wearing.
Yeah. She was ready for a rendezvous of her own. She told him. And based on the description of their past encounters, it wasn't as serious. It was more of a casual relations. And he seemed to want more.
They did not have the communication talk beforehand. This is why open and honest communication is good, because he probably thought they were a lot more serious than what they were.
Yes.
Because you don't go from, oh, we're just friends who hang out and bang when we can, to, can you transfer to my station? I didn't even know we were exclusive. What are you talking about? So that was a very little Nurse Chapel centered story. So this whole part of the episode, we're going to talk about basically the whole meat of this episode. The person we love, the couple we're supporting, the couple who's probably not going to make it, Spock and T'Pring. And so while they're on this shore leave, T'Pring comes to visit Spock. And I love her because she walks into his space and is like, these are your quarters? And he has to like quickly rectify. I'm like, oh, I'm redecorating. She's like, oh, okay. I retract my statement. I will save judgment for when you're done redecorating. And I don't think Spock was trying to redecorate. And she knows that Spock has to work while she's there. And so she also brings her work with her. And she's reforming, I guess, Vulcans who have been, like, I guess I want to say, like, who their, like, felons are, quote unquote. And she reforms them to the Vulcan way, which that sounds a little weird certain ways, because, like, hey, let's have free thinkers and everyone needs to think the same way, but we'll see, you know. It's whatever. It's Vulcan, different time, whatever. We'll say. I don't know. Then Spock initially has to like leave immediately because Pike is like, oh look, we got to go see the Rogovians and we need to talk to them now. And he's sort of like, this is a little bit faster than expected. And when they get there, the Rogovians don't really give them time to. They don't stick to the timeline that was already presented to them, and they immediately go into a meeting. And so when Spock comes back to his room, T'Pring is pissed. And she says in a very polite manner, I was busy too. I have stuff to do too. And I made you a priority. You need to make me one. And it's true. It's very true. He could have sent a message. He could have did something to let her know that he was going to be late. And he didn't. I like that she called him out. What do you think? Go ahead. What do you think?
So she had dinner set. It looked, they're on, like, there was this buffet table and there was food there. So it looked like she was trying to be like, okay, you're going to be late, but I'll help prepare something for his arrival. So I think that was upsetting to her. She was also there in work. She could have done other things with her time. She wanted him to know that her time was important. She was sitting there waiting.
No, not just important, as important as his work.
Yes. Also, just their mannerisms, which we'll get to in a bit, are just very different. I feel like she's a more of a princess kind of thing. Her hands are typically in front of her. She's very structured, very logical because she's Vulcan. And if there's a commitment, I think she wants to follow through on that commitment because you said you were going to do it, and Vulcans are not supposed to lie. So that was the agreement. And he's also made a commitment with her with being together because they're engaged. So therefore she's also observing him to ensure that they are going to be a match. She talks about compatibility for the future. And if he's not going to make her a priority, they're not compatible. So I think I appreciate the fact that she was heads up, straight on about it, not wishy-washy, and gave Spock a piece of his mind to the point in which to a point of her mind, absolutely. And he looked like he disappointed her, and he should have, because he did.
Yeah, he definitely did. And so then he comes up with a meditation to help them sort of see through each other's eyes, because after he sort of walks away, because he's upset that he hurt her, that's when he ran into Nurse Chapel, and Nurse Chapel just sort of smacked him in the back of the head. She's like, "What's wrong with you? You told her you were going to be at dinner and you weren't at dinner. You're wrong. Try and see through each other's eyes of what you're going through." And Spock, I'll take this. Spock was like, "Okay, I'm going to take your advice. I'm going to try." And it totally goes Freaky Friday, and they switch bodies. And it was at this moment that this episode became my favorite. Because I always love a good body switch. And normally we see the body switches between mother daughter, and it's very rare we see some between couples. And when they switch bodies, and Pike comes immediately, and they have to tell him, and Pike's like, "Wait, what? No. Are you joking?
Right.
What's going on?"
Well, at first they tried to pretend to be each other, and that wasn't working out.
Oh, it was not. It was not. And it was very interesting to see Spock as T'Pring stand as Spock, and how T'Pring was and Spock's body was standing as herself, and how their the mannerisms were different, and how they addressed each other was different. Yeah. How they addressed Captain Pike was different. Pike was like, "Well, we ain't got no other avenue. Spock, I need you to do this." Spock as T'Pring is trying to say no, but T'Pring as Spock was like, "Yes. It'll be nice. This whole activity was for us to see through each other's eyes. This will be a great way for me to see your work on a front basis." Spock as T'Pring goes off and tries to handle T'Pring's work, and runs into Nurse Chapel and has to explain what's going on. And Nurse Chapel is like, enjoying this a little too much. And we see Spock handle something a little bit too human for in T'Pring's body. We see him as her punch a Vulcan, another Vulcan in the face, for basically insulting Spock himself. And I thought that was funny. I thought the whole scene of Spock trying to beat T'Pring was hilarious.
I agree. I think seeing them both in play each other was hilarious. And it also goes to show that I don't think he really understood T'Pring's work until that moment. And she's also deeply involved in negotiation. Part of his past sometimes come to play, because I guess everyone knows that he's half human, and whether he's Vulcan enough as well. Yeah. But he came to his own defense. Because a little weird there, but I'm glad Chapel was there to help defend Spock as well, because T'Pring couldn't do all of it himself because of the outer body experience. Anyway,
yeah,
a little confusing to explain.
It is very. So then we see T'Pring in Spock's body at the negotiations with the Argovians, and we see that at first she is sort of doing Spock's job correctly and trying to explain why they should be or join the Federation, why they should accept what's being offered. And then we start seeing her words change, and Pike catches what she's doing. And then he comes up and basically defends Spock and says, you are appreciated, you are loved, we are thankful. And he lays it on thick. And I think that makes T'Pring understand how much of a family Spock has also on the ship. And Pike knew exactly what he was doing because he was like, look, this is Spock's woman. I can't piss her off, but we also can't lose him.
Right, because the Admiral wanted him to stay seated and just be an observer. And Pike just stood up and was like, no, I can't handle this. It's more than what you know, Admiral. I gotta fix this.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then we see that when Spock and T'Pring come back together, when they're finally able to swap bodies back, and it's with some horrible sea urchin paste that smells awful apparently, we see they actually finally have their open and honest discussion, and Spock admits his fear to her that he thought that he wasn't good enough for her because he is half human. And he finally sort of explains the reason why he holds so strong to Starfleet is because here he's not half human, half Vulcan. He's just Spock. No one cares that he's a mix of both. And if he's on Earth, he's not a full human. If he's on Vulcan, he's not a full Vulcan. But here in Starfleet, he's just Spock. And it's an acceptance that he doesn't get anywhere else but here. And I think that opened up T'Pring's eyes to understanding it's not you that he's running to, quote unquote, running away from or prioritizing. It's his acceptance that he's prioritizing, that he feels like right now he can't get on his home world. And I thought that was a very eye-opening heart-to-heart moment, which is why if they don't make it, I'm going to be so upset now because I'm team them. This episode made me team them, and I just can't have my heart broken now.
And finally they get their moment alone without an interruption from Pike, because he's interrupted them several times.
He really has. He has been blocking them a lot. But with talking about Pike, we see that he ends up saving the day with the Argovians in the end, because he noticed that when they first met them, the Argovians were hostile, and then they were light and happy, and then they were logical. And he noticed they were mimicking the people they were coming into contact with, and basically being empathetic to whatever you were giving them, they were giving you. And so in the end, he just up and said, was honest with them and said, there's no plus size for you basically joining the Federation. And honestly, as he was talking, I was like, why would anyone want to join? It's like, yeah, we will be there to help fight an enemy that you will probably have because you joined up with us. We want this, and then you're going to get, we want 100, you'll probably get 10. It wasn't like the scales were never going to balance fully in their favor, but he was open and honest with them. And the Admiral was like, dude, what is wrong with you? But Pike understood that there was nothing that they could say except complete honesty that was going to get through to the Argovians. And as the ship takes off and their cells open, which is a beautiful ship, by the way, so beautiful, we see them lift up the Federation's flag. And they said in the beginning of the episode, the Argovians always fly the flag of their allies if they make a deal. And so at the end, it was their way of saying, okay, we'll become part of the Federation. And it's because they accepted and liked that Pike was open and honest with them, and which is what they were looking for. They didn't want pretty words. They wanted the truth. Which I always tell people, buzzwords don't mean anything. Yeah. They don't. They just sound pretty, but they mean literally nothing. So Pike still saved the day in his green wraparound shirt that you liked.
Oh yeah, his hair was all, I don't know. He had hairspray mousse in it. So they were up and around, and there was a green wrap jacket with leather trim. Wow, I've never seen him in something like that.
He looked very relaxed.
I didn't know if that was supposed to be a formal jacket, but then the Admiral was wearing something much more ornate. And then Uhura was wearing her typical uniform. So it was, Pike just looked a little bit more stylish than we're accustomed to. I would like to circle back a little bit because you mentioned that Spock, I think, slapped the guy that T'Pring was supposed to negotiate with. But when he mentioned it to T'Pring, she sounds thankful. And so
Oh, yes.
she didn't seem like there was any hurt feelings. She was like, yeah, he deserved that. So I appreciated that moment from her. Because I think he was a little nervous about sharing that with her.
He's like, in the spirit of being honest, I may have punched him. That seemed logical. Giving knowing him, that seemed logical. She said something to that effect. And I loved it.
Yeah, like you, I really like her. Yes.
And near the end of the episode, sadly, we see little trindles of seeing that Nurse Chapel is starting to fall for Spock. And I just want to slap her. Because you don't go after men who are taken. You're not that woman, Nurse Chapel. I know the person you're supposed to be. I know all the versions of you that I've read and heard about from years of Star Trek, with people liking her, not liking her, or whatever. Nurse Chapel, he's taken. You're better than this. Don't do it. Do not get feelings for him. Keep it PLP, platonic life partners.
Right. I don't think she's going to sabotage their relationship, but I think if they ever broke up, she would step in and very quickly.
I won't say she'll sabotage, because that doesn't seem like the personality that she has. But do I think something might happen to where it'll be unintentional, but because of her feelings for him, something might happen? I think that could happen. And she may be weak at one moment and give him a tight hug, and then he realizes, oh, this is wrong. Chapel, don't make me dislike you. Please don't make me dislike you.
Yeah, this could get really awkward on a ship and away missions and other critical moments when there's jealousy. So this could get rough. I hope she stays in her lane and keeps it professional.
I hope we see more of T'Pring in a couple more episodes. I do hope we see more of her, because she's a breath of fresh air when it comes to seeing how Spock interacts, because he is sort of different with her very slightly than he is with everyone else. He's a little bit more, we see a more romantic side of him that we don't see. And even that romantic side, quote unquote, is very slight in a Vulcan way, but how they have their verbal conversations is like foreplay for them. And it's, I'm like, oh, I like this Spock. Okay, I see you trying to spit your game at her. So I hope to see more of her in the future.
Yeah, and with that, I hope the in-laws. I hope we get the chance to meet the in-laws and learn more about courtship, what courtship is like in Vulcan communities and so forth like that. I think that's going to be fascinating. Let's bring back Sarek and Amanda and see how that works out.
Them yet.
That would be really cool.
Very interesting that we haven't seen his. We saw them more on Discovery for Michael than we do see them for their own. I mean,
we're only 5 episodes in, so
he got engaged. There was no message of saying, "Son, we're happy for you. We're proud of you." His mother ain't gonna come up and be like, "My baby boy engaged." She sat there and was willing to commit treason for him, but is not going to show up and be like, "I'm so happy for you, honey." No messages.
Maybe because they were promised to each other when they were kids that
but maybe it's official now. Amanda's the type of mom who would at least send him a message and be like, something.
Yeah. They need to go on shore leave, just the 2 of them, and travel to see family, and I'm along for that ride. I think that would be a hoot. Dr. Mbenga mentioned seeing a doctor there on shore leave. So I hope to learn more about that, and maybe this doctor is going to help find a cure for his daughter. It was a quick one line. It was a quick moment in the episode, but there might be more to come, because we're learning a lot about all of the characters, and everyone has a skeleton except for Ortega, I think. So everyone else,
but
secret.
But you know that she had a little bit of a life before, because she was like, you gave Spock relationship advice. You don't get between Vulcans and relationships. He was like, Ortega told Nurse Chapel, "You're about to get your butt kicked, and I'm gonna walk away."
Right.
She said, "I got no
Yeah.
Aim for the smoke. Aim for the smoke.
She keeps it real.
It's like, oh, that's between you and him. That's not between me. I didn't say nothing. Oh, you called my name? I'm coming. I heard my name. Ortega's not for the smoke. She's like, you got between their relation. You gave him relationship advice. Stay out of Vulcan relationships. And I like specifically stay out of Vulcan relationships. Any last
a fun episode.
It was. It was a fun episode. It was just something, a joy to watch. There wasn't too much of a anxiety of, oh my God, are they going to die? Oh my God, who's going to live? Who's going to survive? Why are they doing this? Oh my gosh, what's going on? But it didn't feel too much like a filler episode as well, because I do think we learned some vital information about the characters. We learned more about them versus it just being an episode that if you take it out, the entire series is the same. And this one, I feel like if you took it out, we wouldn't know or connect with La'an as much, because I'm starting to like her a little bit more after this episode. We wouldn't see Spock and I wouldn't appreciate their relationship, Spock and T'Pring's relationship, any as much. We wouldn't see that Pike is good outside of being on the ship as well. Yeah. So I think this wasn't really a full filler episode. It was to an extent, but it wasn't a full episode where if you took information out of it, we wouldn't miss it out of the entire season, you know?
Yeah. I think you made a really good point earlier, saying like there was never like a scene in which you thought someone was going to die, and some that's the tough thing about like Discovery, is that there's episodes in which you're like, they're trying to save the whole universe. There's like so much pressure in this episode that it's hard to let it go. But there is no life at risk. It was just a lot of fun, a lot of character development, as I mentioned before. It's just outside of their typical roles. Character development outside their normal work life. Yeah.
Agree. Definitely agree. So any other last thoughts before we end this episode?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the next one.
Me too. So as always, I'm Andrea.
I'm Anika.
And live long and prosper.